This is Van Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air. We're going to talk about analog in an AI era with Matt Hancock, the creative force behind DECO-LUXE. And welcome to the Fan Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing tonight?
Doing great, Phantom. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we always did this show back in 2016. We started talking to singer-songwriters or emerging artists. That's the whole jam. And we've about 1,300 episodes later. We've kind of expanded that, but I love talking to musicians because I am a musician. So I want to welcome you again to the show. And before we get to the heart of your story, I always ask a couple questions. What motivates you, and why do you do what you do?
What motivates me is waking up in the morning. Every morning I wake up and I just remind myself that I'm doing the best I can with what I got. And, you know, I have this saying that I'm kind of working on. I'm still tweaking a little bit, but have tomorrow you thank you today and accept what yesterday you did. So just waking up in that, in the middle of that and being a part of that journey.
I want to let people know we got your QR code for your Instagram up. So if people scan that, they'll go right to your DECO-LUXE Music Instagram. So we
Yeah,
have that
thanks.
tied there.
So what was the second half of that? And why do I do
The
what I
second
do?
half, yeah, why you do what you do is kind of like the same thing.
Yeah, I think why do I do what I do is because I I think I have a voice that I want to be heard.
hmm I think that's why, any artist that decides not to be a cover artist
Hmm.
or be like like somebody who's a studio musician or a classical musician, they decide they want to write their own thing.
Right.
And I've always been very interested in the people that do that with paint, writing, acting, anything. Anytime somebody has like a creator owned concept and they execute, I'm very interested in that because I
Yeah, for
think
sure.
that's what, I'm a child of the 70s and the age of the singer songwriter,
Hmm.
kind of started by like the Beatles and Dylan and guys like Hendrix and Morrison. It's like the idea that you didn't have to be from Tin Pan Alley. Not that it's bad to be from Tin Pan Alley. You get Neil Diamond, you get get other people that were great, but it's cool to understand somebody that actually it's their idea and they're singing it or
Right.
they're
Yeah,
writing it or they're playing it. That's always been a big mover to me because you get into their head.
for sure.
You know,
And when you can really see the vision behind something and the execution is, top notch, I think that that's when, it separates just like, oh, I'm a painter and, oh, I'm a, musician and, to being like a true artist.
so what made you want to do analog in this AI era where there's a lot of people who are more producer than musician?
Right.
Um,
Um, Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, you can start from there.
Sure. Yeah. Um, so I was in the military, and before and during while I was in the military, I was mostly a guitarist. And I had an injury while I was in the army that kind of paralyzed partially a couple of my fingers on my fret hand,
Oh,
and so the journey from that to like being a guitarist and then going to this situation where that can't do this humongous part of me.
yeah.
I had to kind of start from scratch because I had this whole part of me that needed to get out in the form of music. And I kind of leaned back and, I was like, what else can I do? And I was on drumline in high school and I like toyed around with, like Fruity Loops and other, basic, beat making stuff when I
Oh,
was,
DAW type of stuff, yeah, DAWs and
yeah,
drum machines and
right.
MPCs and all that.
And so I toyed around with a lot of that when I was, growing up. And then when I had my injury and I couldn't play guitar, I was like, well, I feel like I can still hold drumsticks. So I bought a drum set, started playing, and I still play in a band with one of the guys who plays bass that I originally started with, like way back when.
Mhm.
Um, and then that turned into recording because I wanted to be able to record my, our jams and then be able to like, okay, let's write a song using these jams or whatever. And then that led down this rabbit hole of, okay, well, what kind of mics am I using? Like, am I using like some kind of cool effect? Like, am I placing the mic in some part of the room that like is like tucked behind a corner, you know, behind a
Get the
couch or something?
weird to get
Yeah,
the atmosphere of the room. You kind of getting old school. Like a lot of the old
exactly.
bands used to record in mansions, in
Yeah, exactly.
stairways and basements and all kinds of rooms to get the feel of the room.
Right. And so I like found that like that production side of things was just as like artistic as the making of the music itself. And
Mm.
so I was like, okay, well, let me get into recording. And I got into recording and, you know, started collecting like microphones and some old outboard gear and stuff. And then I was like, okay, well, like, what if I like messed with this to make some form of like electronic music using the gear that I have? And
Oh,
it's
wow.
all this old analog gear that I've accumulated over the years. And
Like
there's
modular. Like what kind of gear?
so that I started off with like just I had like these compressors and this like tube. I think it's a tube preamp,
Oh, you're
but
using that.
they were kind of busted though, and
Well, that's
so
always good. The Kinks used a busted amp. You
right,
know, they're famous for using a
yeah,
busted amp. Sometimes that works.
exactly. And so like I was like, okay, well, how can I? And I like took some inspiration from like dub music, and it's like, how can I use this for like it's not its intended purpose? Like, how can I like run like distortion through this and kind of like you know
Well, that's
make it
cool. That's like
into its
brand.
own
You know,
sound?
you're doing a lot of the cool stuff there.
Yeah. And so then I was like getting into tape a lot. I was getting in, if you can see behind me, I've got like a 1/4 inch reel to reel. And I
Yeah,
would
that's
like,
always cool.
yeah. And so I made like tape echoes using stuff like that. And then I accumulated like my first like small modular setup,
Mhm.
which was mostly like IntelliGel stuff.
Yeah, that's cool.
And, and then I got into that kind of, you know, the East Coast, West Coast synthesis, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
that all of
Bob
that.
versus,
And right.
Buchla? Bob
Yeah.
versus Buchla.
Yeah. Bukla's cool. But I, you know, I don't have that kind of Bukla money. So
But then people who simulate Buchla, so you can get stuff that's like a simulated Buchla.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think Tip Top Audio just came out with like a whole Bukla line,
yeah.
which I'm excited about because I have some Tip Top modules
There's
as
some make
well.
noise stuff that can go there.
Yeah, I have a lot of make noise as well, and I really like that approach because you know they specifically make all of their modules with like the instructions and what the things are on there are all kind of skewed and
Yeah,
abstract, so
I
it
like
makes it so it like encourages you to experiment
just
more.
play with it until you break
Yeah,
it. Well, you
right,
wanna break it. Wait, invert or
yeah,
convert.
yeah, and so like I got into all of that, and then I kind of like got real like messy with it, as you can imagine. I got like kind of more into like the abstract stuff, and like at the time too, I was like kind of going through a bit of a dark time in my life through the depression and stuff
Mhm.
because of the injury. So like I was kind of in this weird area where I was like, I'm making music, I'm doing some cool stuff, but I'm like also really depressed, and this music is like very indicative of that. Like it's
It was kinda
very
like a, a Trent Reznor Pretty Hate Machine kinda idea.
yeah, and I mean, you know, Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross, they're huge inspirations of mine,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you know, I've had the luxury of seeing them live, so I'm it's
Yeah, I
like
saw
I feel
Nine Inch Nails at Woodstock, where they were throwing the mud at Green Day,
oh
actually.
man,
I was
yeah,
in the crowd, I saw that.
holy cow, I'm so
Yeah, that was
jealous.
pretty cool. It's like what I like about, modulars or
Yeah,
early electronic instruments, like even at the back in the day, like the Moog 1,
hmm,
Moog Model 2, the early models.
yeah,
Those models were not dependent on keyboards, not till you get to the mini Moog. I mean,
hmm,
the early models was all based on sequencing or alternative input, where you would
right,
have an oscillator trigger an oscillator, LFO trigger it, envelopes trigger things, and you were trying to do stuff that you couldn't do on the piano,
right.
which was the point.
Exactly. Yeah, and so that like my modular setup doesn't have a keyboard. I have a keyboard that's off to the side, but it's not connected to the modular at all.
Use like sequencers, or you just trigger it with like LFOs and stuff like that.
Sometimes it depends on what I'm feeling at the, typically when I start a session, like, so I go real like Buddhist with it. I like just completely remove everything
Yeah,
in
you take
between,
all
in
the
between
wires out
passes.
and start again.
Yeah. And so like, it's like, sweeping up the mandala, but, so
Yeah, I get
I,
it.
I like, I start from scratch and like whatever I'm feeling, sometimes I'll start with like, the make noise maths.
Yeah, I got a mass.
Yeah. So like I'll start with that and I'll just kind of get like, using the end of rise as like a trigger for
Oh,
the
yeah,
the
I create
sequence or
a lot
whatever.
from that thing. You
And then
can
I'll
do a
have them like, the out going to the end going to the out, kind of getting like a West Coast thing going. And then like I'll kind of use that and like build my shape. And then
mhm,
like whatever I feel like going from there, I can, tweak it. I
and
can
then
run
run
it
it
through
through,
it.
like, effects to kinda, like, use
Hmm.
delays and reverbs and tape
Yeah.
echoes. Man, phasers, I mean, that's kind of an old trick.
Yeah.
You take a synth and you run it through a pedal,
Hmm.
and then you run it back into a filter, and then you run it into an oscillator, you kinda go over it, or you keep on going around.
Yeah. And so the process with the modulars, I kind of will start with something and then I'll kind of get to this point, and then as we were talking about, it's just like I record it, and
You just
then
do an open recording from the beginning?
sometimes I'll get like sometimes it's really good to catch those like early noises and stuff
Yeah, I
as you're
like to
going.
just open record everything and then go
Right.
there.
And so I'll typically start it, but like sometimes if I've got like something that's already going that I've already recorded a little bit and I'm just kind of going like using that
Yeah,
as a
where
springboard to another like soundscape, then sometimes I'll just kind of play without recording just to like
mhm,
meditate
get
with
an
it.
idea get an
And
idea
then
for where you put it down.
once I get to something that I'm like, oh yeah, that there's something
Yeah,
there,
that
then
one I should
I'll,
put down.
yeah, and then
I
I'll
just
like
go over the years,
record
and
it.
what I found is, like, even when I'm playing, sometimes those happy accidents are so good that I wish I had to record, so I just hit the
Hmm. Yeah. I think the one of the programs I'm using right now has like a, it's kind of auto recording.
it just
I think a
auto
lot,
does it, yeah.
it auto does it, but it's like if I like forget, I'm like, oh crap, and then I go and like hit record. It's like they track the last like 15 seconds. So like if
Well,
I'm like,
yeah,
"Ah," if I get it real quick, then I can
yeah, you
catch it.
can get into it. But I think
Yeah.
it's really cool to use the modulars in this world of AI, because so many people are doing people are saying, "Well, the prompt engineering, I understand it, right?" Because people used to argue that the modulars wasn't music.
Yeah.
Like, the
Yeah.
purist at the academies, they told Moog that that wasn't music, but then Sunrod went and grabbed, like, a model wanted a model like an A. Like,
Hmm.
there's Model A, Model D, where there's an A, B, C, and D,
Hmm.
and Sunrod actually got, like, A or B.
Wow. Holy
And
cow.
he started to prove to people, being the crazy jazz musician that he was, that it is an instrument, but, there are people today that still don't wanna believe that, Moog is an instrument, but, it is.
I think that we've kind of, collectively come mostly past that at this point, but I I get the sentiment from like the ideas of the time where it's like, oh, these are computers that are just gonna, make it like non-human, but it's very like, echoing what's
Analog
happening
is, like,
right now.
so analog compared to digital,
Right.
there's an argument there because, I've got digital synths.
Yeah.
I've
I've
got,
got
like, a
both.
Juno I got a Juno,
Mhm.
X, but then I got a Moog grandmother, I got 32, I got, sub 37s, I mean, I got a lot of Moogs, I got, like,
Yeah.
4 Moogs, and there's something about the Moog I like, it's like when you turn it on, it has to warm up, and if you
Yeah. It's
use
got
it
a hum
before it
for you.
warms, yeah, it acts different, and
Hmm.
sometimes capturing it after it's been on 2 hours
Right.
versus being on 10 minutes, it behaves different,
Yeah.
and it's just this it's like this, it's like your muse. A
Hmm.
lot of times these modulars or these analog synths are your download from the universe because they'll just like, "Hey, I feel like this today,"
Hmm.
and you got an oscillator drift, and it's like, "Whoa, that's actually I want it. I don't
Yeah.
wanna fix that."
Exactly. Yeah. I think that you get a lot, and I do. I'm same with you. I have some digital synths, and I use a lot of stuff that's in the box, and then I use the synth, and that I have my analog stuff on there is like kind of driving the force behind most of my creative process. And I would say that like a lot of what I do is I start with the soundscape first,
Sounds good, yeah. You like sound
and
painting? The idea of like a
yeah,
sound painting.
Yeah, and so like I'll start with kind of getting the textures that I want first, and then like as I'm going, I can almost like imagine like there's already some movement going, even just in the
Do you see like
textures.
color in your sounds? I mean, I know people talk about triangle waves and sine waves and square waves.
Yeah,
Some
I don't
people
have
try
the
to
I
give
don't
like
have like
meaning
the full
or
blown synesthesia. No, I don't see like
colors
a C major as like a yellow and
and
a B
green
flat
and
diminished
orange
or
and all that.
something. Yeah, I don't see that, but like I can see like it's almost like a memory. It's
Hmm.
like it'll be like
But they're
it's
feeling.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like I'm like in there. I'm like, okay, like, and with modular, one of the things that I try to purposefully avoid, but like it's easy to fall into this like kind of like, oh, I'm working on a spaceship because everything sounds like bleep bloopy,
Oh, yeah, everything sound like sci-fi. I mean,
Right?
that's what, sci-fi used modes
Yeah,
and
and
early
so
modulars to make all those sounds.
exactly, and so like I try to like kind of take it like a step beyond that. I'm like, okay, sci-fi, yes, but it's like I'm like in a sci-fi world that is like somehow like not dealing with any sort of like weird
Weird, like
craziness. It's almost
remote
like
visual.
I'm a side character in Blade Runner or something where
Yeah.
like it's like the main story doesn't really affect me, but I'm
Like
still like
Hans
living
Zimmer
in
type
that
stuff.
world.
But
And
Zimmer was
so
using, like, those Yamahas. I mean, the
mhm,
Dream Machine. He's
yeah.
using the CS80s and the Dream Machines GX1. And those things are just amazing because they did this really good polyphonic analog.
Hmm.
And polyphonic analog, you get the prophets. You get the like, you get the early Roland Jupiters and early Junos. They're just, Oberheims.
Hmm.
But then you got the pure monophonic analogs, like VCS3s, you got the ARPs, you got I can just run down the line. But there's a difference between like if you use an old like a Model 55 Moog,
Hmm.
it has massive amount of oscillators, but it's still monophonic. But
Right.
you put like 10 oscillators on something, it
Because
sounds
it's
like it's polyphonic.
exactly it's
One
got
note
like
sounds polyphonic.
yeah, because all the beating that happens from like FM synthesis and everything. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. But the I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. So yeah, so oh yeah, so getting into the memory of that, right? Like I'm like living in this like kind of imaginary world, and then I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to add to this? Like, and then sometimes it'll be just like a sequence or an arpeggio or something, and then I'll just kind of keep going from there, and then I get to this point where I'm like, okay, with the modular, that's sometimes it'll be longer, maybe an hour, and then I'm kind of like pump the brakes, like take a break, like step away, go do something else. Like with modular, I can come back, but like if I'm doing something in the DAW, I'll put it down and I won't touch it for a week or two.
Yeah,
And
it's good to
then,
kinda walk away and come back.
yeah. And then when I come back, if I am like with modular, if I put, headphones on, I'm like kind of put them on and I'm like, okay, what was I thinking with this? And then if the initial thought isn't like, I love this and I want to keep doing this right now, I will pull everything out.
Just
Like,
start it if you didn't like it.
yeah, because I think it's so easy for us as creatives in general to fall into this trap where you will become biased on your own stuff and you'll be like, oh, this is the best thing I've ever made. This is incredible. This is great. And it's, you get that like rush, that dopamine rush when you're like
When
first
you're
getting
first
in,
making something, yeah.
when you're
You gotta
first
get
creating
back to it.
something.
A lot of times you
Yeah.
gotta go back, or you actually go back to stuff you did before. Like, if you're an archivist and you keep everything,
Mhm.
sometimes, like, something you did 6 months ago wasn't hitting 6 months ago,
Right.
but then when you hear it now with something you're doing now,
Hmm.
then you kinda like, boom, the light goes off, it's like, "Hey, now that works."
Yeah, and I think there's a important distinction between that and like what I'm talking about. But the what I'm talking about is like if it's like if I don't see any potential for it, like at that moment, which is like it's a gut decision. I'm like I don't want to keep doing this. And I'll delete it. I'll delete the file completely.
Oh, you
If
actually
I'm
get
yeah, completely. And then if I'm like this is something that can be something, but not what I'm working on right now, then I'll file it away. And that's like kind of what you're talking about. And I do save a ton of stuff, but like when I'm working on stuff, I'll kind of get laser focused on this one sound. Well, I've had in the past where I would get laser focused on trying to make something out of this thing, and then I end up wasting like hours and hours trying to make something out of nothing. And so I've like done this as like a protection measure for myself to
Yeah.
like prevent that from happening. Cause there was times where I'll pull something up and then it'll be like you were saying, where it'll be 6 months after I had the initial idea. And then I'll be like, I don't know what to do with this.
Hmm. Well,
And if,
sometimes there's things there's a kind of lesson learned.
yeah.
Like when
And
you are doing sound design, the point is sometimes sound design, the point is maybe not making a song.
mhm,
And sometimes the point is to actually learn, and even if it doesn't sound good, right?
mhm,
I'm an engineer, I do software design. And
right.
so in software design, we don't throw anything out, right? Because we have to go back and look at it, right? And so what I've kind of learned is like even if it's trash,
Mhm,
whatever you do that's trash still is a learning experience because I'm a Buddhist. And
right.
so the
For sure.
idea that you have it is helps you get to the next step. The fact that maybe you didn't make it,
Mhm.
but it still was useful.
Yeah. No, it was definitely useful. And I mean, I'm not, discrediting that at all. Me personally, when I have done it, when I've gone through the exercise and the process of making that, that's the lesson. That's
Yeah.
where I've learned whatever it is that I'm like, okay, this was cool to do, but like I liked what I did with the sound design for that, but I don't like this sound.
Yeah,
And
then you can
that's
just say, "I don't like it," can need to
yeah,
move
and
on.
then just like, push forward. But and I as I'm doing that, I'll kind of only allow myself to be in this like kind of short-term creative mode for a while if I'm starting a new project. Um and what I'll do is I'll just get to where I have like 50 of these like 30-minute little nuggets, like these little bits of time where I've, spent just a little tiny bit of time working on something and then I put it away. Like I did something on modular, recorded it, put it away. And then when I'll come back and if there's stuff that's worth, going into, then I'll use it. And if it's something where I'm like, okay, I don't like that, I'll move it to another folder and then I whittle it down and then I get to where I have maybe like 15 or 20 tracks that I'm working on. And then I'll do the same thing again. I'll just keep working on them a little bit, step back, like take a break, come back. Okay, is this working? Is this working? Is this
So you're
sound
doing kind of
fitting
like
with
a
the rest of it?
refining process, kind of like a refinery for your music.
Exactly.
Again,
Yeah. And so it ends up like, and as I'm doing this, I'm kind of bouncing back in between them all too, as it gets like, as the pool gets smaller. And so what I feel like that helps is to kind of glue the process together. Like all of the sounds have like similar kind of things that I'm doing with. I'll take like I do a lot of like field sampling where I'll go and
field
record,
recording.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I do that on a tape, and then I'll run the tape through either just like I have a like an old Library of Congress cassette player that you can change the time and the speed on,
Oh, cool. So you can run
and
that.
so I can like run like these like things super slow and they just get like real warbly, and I use that as a texture in a lot of my songs, especially on this recent project.
Kinda like
But
a Mellotron.
yeah, it's kind of like a janky mellotron. But so but yeah, so then I'll kind of do the same or similar things across these projects as I'm editing them. And so then I get to, you know, where I've got, okay, this is what I want the album to be, 12 songs, 15 songs, and then I'll either decide at that point, how do I want to do this? Like, is this all, what's this project going to be?
So
Um,
is this the music that you're doing, is it all instrumental or do you have, vocals?
no, so this project I partnered with a vocalist named Cat Cute.
Mhm.
I've worked with her before, and she's awesome. She's an incredible lyricist and vocalist. And I like when I got to that point where I had like the 15 tracks that I was working with, I was like, I know that her voice is perfect for this project. So let me get her involved, and I reached out to her and I asked her if she was interested. I gave her a demo of one of the tracks,
Does she
and
write the
then
lyrics or do you write the lyrics?
she wrote the lyrics on almost everything, and then but I reached out to her and I kind of gave her the what I was envisioning.
Mhm.
I kind of said, like, this is the kind of vibe I'm going for. This kind of like nostalgia driven, you know, more emotional thing, which I can get into that in a
Yeah, what kind of
second.
period? Is
But
it like 70s emotion or 80s or
so
is
I
there
would say
certain
this is like 80s, 90s. Like it's kind of like tail end, synthwave kind of. DECO-LUXE. The name comes from the design aesthetic.
Mhm.
That is just that kind of Miami Vice esque
Oh, that kind
thing.
of thing from that period, like an Iron Hammer kinda.
Right, but I had taken that kind of inspiration, and then I like it's a little bit more cinematic
Yeah, yeah.
than what that is, and that's mostly due to like the movement that I like have been
More
trying
like
to
Blade
do.
Runner,
Yeah, I mean it's cool stuff.
like
I mean,
Zimmerman type stuff.
but yeah, so I reached out to her and I gave her one demo, and she was like, "I love this. This is great." And I was like, "Well, lucky for you, I've got like a whole album. Do you want to do the whole album with me?" And she was
That's
like,
cool.
"Yeah, let's do it." So we partnered up. She and I told her the vibe I was going for, and then um, gave her all the tracks. She came up with lyrics and vocals for all the tracks, and I mean, honestly, I had hardly any notes on anything that she did, and we collaborated on some stuff.
Jesus, so she kinda picked it from the vibe of the actual music.
Yeah, yeah. She's great to work with, and I hope that we continue to do so.
That's awesome. Yeah, one
And
time I actually worked with somebody back in the day, back in 2017, and we did a collab,
mhm.
and it was like we're both I was doing vocals and they were doing vocals, but it was cool to actually have that synergy with somebody that, like, gets your work.
Yeah, for
When you
sure.
actually have somebody that, like, understands your music
Hmm.
and then
And
understands, like, what lyrics to go with your music, that's
exactly.
really cool.
And then so she did her pass on the demos, and then I like, again, to emphasize that point too. It's like it's not just you're not seeing the how the sausage is made, right? Like she saw those tracks and then was like, okay, I see what Matt's trying to do with these songs.
You understood it enough that
And
you just
so
to do
yeah,
it.
and so like that's just with the demo. I get the tracks, from her. I go in and I start producing. I start like going in, changing out my
Yeah, you have to
levels on
change
everything.
things to go with a vocalist. Once you have a vocalist, then
Hmm.
things might have to
Yeah,
adjust to match,
and you
like,
got
the
yeah,
lyrics.
exactly. And then you gotta, move things around. You gotta, change, add elements from sometimes the modular, sometimes more samples. I'll chop things up, do things like that, and
For your drums, though, I'm really interested, like, what type of drum aesthetic do you have for this, music?
so I I used a drum machine that I made out of samples, but it's all like kind of I'm trying to find a good way to describe it. Kind of like yeah, kind of like Knight Rider style, like the
Oh, that type. Okay, so you actually have a custom drum kit that you
that I
built from
that I
sample.
yeah, I've made it like a sample, like a drum machine out of
Okay.
a sampler, and on some of it I used a lot of modular sounds for like bass drops and things, and
Mhm.
then I used it for like some like swells, just to kind of add transitional moments and things. Um, but a lot of it, honestly, there was this one sound that I kept coming back to, where I had done a field recording of these chimes. I was at my buddy Brian's wedding, and we were staying at this like resort place that also happened to be like kind of like a spiritual center, and they had like chimes everywhere. So I went out with like an SM57 going into a tape recorder, and I just like recorded all of these different chimes. And then I took the chimes in. I did what I was saying, where I slowed them down and then like kind of brought them in. But with cassette, when you record a cassette on something that's that kind of like powerful, it's just like a lot of like that high pitched,
Yeah,
like clipping kind of analog on there. And so when you slow down the tape and you get that, it really just like makes like this crazy shimmery sound.
Hmm.
And so I would take that in, and then I would kind of chop it up, um, using honestly stock plugins from Logic Pro. They got a new thing called Beat Breaker, and I've been going in there and kind of making my own like little presets and things. Um, but yeah, going in there, chopping that up, and it makes like kind of a beat using
So you're just using
these.
like sound with field recordings to make beats. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen people do that, and yeah, it's really interesting to go and take field recordings and then use them for rhythmic
Hmm.
um, exercises, and also modulars tend to be very rhythmic
Right.
with the sequencers. So the sequences, you can take any kind of modular sequence, and if you play with it, with the filters, you can take bass and turn it into a drum. You can take a
Hmm.
lead, and you can turn anything into anything else. But if once you figure out how you're gonna use it, are you gonna let sequences drive it, kind of happy accidents kind of drive it, but in a
Hmm.
rhythmic structure to kind of
Yeah.
meet like the expectations of rhythm is like, okay, it's got to have, maybe it's not Ringo, maybe it's not John Bonham, maybe it's not a Lynn LM1, or it's
Yeah.
not an 808 or a 909, but it's like it's got to be in some kind of rhythmic space.
Yeah. And so I mean, I went simple with percussion on this for the most part. I like wanted it to have like a lot of punch, but I wanted that punch to come mostly from the like the bass, the synth bass.
Bass is really do a lot of rhythmic driving is the bass.
Yeah, and so it's like synthwave kind of has a lot of these aesthetic, motifs that are kind of used across the board, and I wanted to take some of that inspiration. So shout out to all of the synthwave producers
So
who
my
got me
bands.
here. But
Yeah,
but the I also wanted to kind of depart from that, and it ended up kind of shifting a little bit more into the pop world, which was interesting for me because I don't know if you could read a book by its cover, but I don't typically look like what I would think your normal pop guy is. Like
no, no. I mean, well,
I'm
pop is
a
sometimes in the indie world, pop's a bad name, but
right,
like
yeah,
everybody, well, depends on what pop you're talking about. Like pop to me is like Ringo,
yeah,
and
yeah, and
that's
so
not popular with a lot of people anymore.
yeah, so I went from like creating this like abstract kind of alternate alternative rock, experimental rock project, and then I was working on this DECO-LUXE, what eventually became the DECO-LUXE stuff, and I got to this point where I'm just like, this can't be tied to like the previous project's name, and that's
Yeah,
not like that's not shade on my other stuff. I still am doing both, but like this like warrants being its own thing,
it's its
and
own identity. Well,
yeah,
artists do that. Artists that when they want to make a big genre shift, sometimes
yeah,
they don't want to keep the all the baggage from the other
yeah.
project.
And
Everybody's looking.
I'm not like hiding that part of my life, I'm not like trying to like put anything behind me, but it's and there's still obvious elements of my like sound design across both, but I just, this needed to be its own thing,
Oh,
and so I decided to kind of build up this DECO-LUXE profile and start releasing the music on that. um yeah, and
I
i'm
guess I'm gonna
i'm
ask you a little more about the drums. Like,
yeah,
if you're doing pop
sure.
music, were you looking for a certain type of snare and kick, or do you
Yeah,
stay away from that and try to do alternative sounds through field recordings to get to those things?
I have done that in the past, but on this one particularly, I was using mostly sampled drums, and because I wanted to, I guess I wanted to kind of have that part of me not have to work in overdrive like that, because a lot of times with some of my stuff, I'll do like really elaborate percussive
Work,
writings,
right?
like, and like honestly, the first, um, so I was talking earlier about how I got into drumming and then I got into recording. And then I was like, there's a song that I really like by A Perfect Circle. Um,
Mhm.
it's their cover of Let's Have a War. And they have essentially two drum parts going on at the same time, and it's
Mhm.
very like, you know, it's like hi-hat kick snare centric, but it's real fast, like 16th note, like, patterns, but they're both doing different things. And I was like, I want to try and do something where I have three
Mhm.
drum sets.
Trees
I
aren't
want
doing
to,
like that?
yeah, I want to do three drum sets. And so I would do two separate recordings of my drum set, and then I would do a third recording. Um, I did a set of recordings using my tape, my field recorder, and I recorded every individual instrument on the drum set, like
Wow.
10 hits on everything
Yeah, to get
on
yeah.
onto tape. And so then I chopped that up, made a drum machine using those sounds. So like it
Mhm.
would cycle through all the different kick hits, it would cycle through all the different snare hits, and so it was always a little different. Like it was very
Eclectic,
calculated. It was very calculated in its like lack of uniformity. Like I wanted it to
kind of
feel like
random
an
signal generator.
yeah, and so like, but I wanted it to feel organic, and then um, it ended up sounding beautiful, but it was just like it doesn't sound like drums. It just sounds like and
Yeah,
like,
yeah. That's
but you
interesting.
can
You can do that with sequencers. You can put them on, like,
yeah,
probability and
yeah,
random, or
yeah,
use
for sure.
random voltage generators to trigger, like a DFAM. I got, like, a DFAM, but, like, I can use random voltage generators
Hmm.
to generate those, analog drums to be
Hmm.
very different or run a math through it.
Yeah,
And so if you do stuff like that, then you can sound like you actually have not like so much pre-programmed drums, because the
right,
people using like 808s or
right.
CR78s or any of the nine or any of those type of sets, you
Hmm.
get into like very common patterns that
Yeah,
kind of not they're all common, but they're in the everybody knows that, oh, that's an 808.
right. Yeah, for sure.
That's a
And
909 or 78.
I knew that I didn't want to stick with like one of those specific ones, so I used samples for the kicks and the snares on this, and then I would process them all a little bit differently as I was going
Yeah,
into
so
it.
you get the random nature because
Hmm.
if you're running a modular, then you actually can get this kind of really kind of organic, even though it's
Right.
electronic, it's not so it's not so predictable, and that's I've always liked to play with that
Yeah.
myself. I see what you're doing. That's pretty cool that
Yeah.
you have that mindset.
Yeah. And so I more so on my previous music stuff, I did a ton with like sampling my own drumming. And on this album, I didn't really do that as much because I wanted the drums to not be the focus.
Mhm.
I wanted it to have a driving beat, but I wanted it to be more about like these other soundscapey elements. And
So you
wanted,
want the synth to have a voice, to
yeah,
be more
I wanted all of that to take like front and center, and then obviously Cat Cute's voice just like shines right through the middle, and it's great stuff. But I've really like overcomplicated drums in the past when I was like producing things, and like I was like, okay, the drums were like too much. Like it was like too much to try and mix three drum sets. It was like too
yeah,
much to
like
try
Allman
and
Brothers going on. You're like, that's a lot
yeah,
of work.
yeah, and I just didn't want to go through all that, and so that as I was like kind of creating the original machinations of what would become these songs, I knew that I wanted to focus on one specific sound, and then I found like that kind of synth like thump that I wanted for like,
Then the
and I was
bass, you don't
yeah,
want
and
like
so
the
I
bass
like
drum.
so, and then I started creating these like kind of synth wavy vibes, and then
So
I was
when
like,
I guess I'm gonna ask a question because I'm a synthesis, but so in terms of your pad design or your atmospheric type of sounds,
yeah.
what are you going for with your pads?
So I use clouds a lot. Mutable instruments. I have a clone of the clouds,
Mhm.
um, and a lot of the time for these pads, it's you want to get it like where it's there and present, and it like creates a feeling of presence that it's there, but it doesn't necessarily. It's not a musical attribute. Like it's not
Okay.
like a
More atmospheric, yeah.
it's yeah, and like it's only musical in the sense where it's like you want it to be relatively in tune with
So it's not trying
whatever.
to be like part of the melody. You're not
Right.
trying to do like lead lines or bass lines. It's
With
more
a
like,
pad, no.
yeah,
With a
no,
yeah. And so like sometimes I'll get to a point where as I'm designing a sound, I'll be like, okay, I can set this, send this volt per octave, and um, I can make it into a melodic instrument. And then
if
I'll chop it down and I'll like put an envelope on it and stuff like that. But if I'm talking about like a pad design, then for me it's more about movement. You want
mm,
like a little bit of like something going on, and a
a
lot of the
lot of
times,
LFOs, like building tons of LFOs and envelopes and kind of
yeah,
evolving sounds or kind of
yeah, and
cascading sounds or whatever.
yeah, and so like I typically will have it where it's like, one side's triggering a delay, the other side's triggering some sort of random thing going on, and but it's like they're overlapping, it's sound on sound, so like it creates these like ever changing things with like kind of a general pulsing feeling, and
Yeah,
whatever that
it's kind of like
is,
if you
it could
go into
be
that,
in.
like, yeah, D50 or JD08,
Yeah.
800, they had these things where there's multiple parts to a sound
Hmm.
and tons of LFOs triggering things.
Hmm.
If you go on the D50 or the, JD 800 from Roland's, they had these very weird cascading, ever evolving pads. They weren't meant for like playing lead lines or
Right.
doing like jump. They're not trying to do like jump. They're
Yeah.
actually doing these very atmospheric, weird things that are cinematic
Hmm.
in nature. Is
Yeah,
that
for
what you
sure.
kinda get to through the
Yeah.
module?
So with the modular, I do that a lot, and then I'll kind of, when we were talking about like swells and things, like
Yeah,
if I'm working on a song and I'm like going in and like I have my track that's in the workshop, and then I'm kind of like chopping it up, like rearranging, composing, doing things like that, then I will be like, okay, I need a swell here. Like I need something. And then I can go to whatever I am working on there, and then just kind of make like a pad using that, and then just record the pad, but like swell it up on um, the gain, and
yeah.
just like record that in, and then and then drop it off, and then use that as like my kind of build up into a chorus or something.
Yeah, you like to
And
build like classical music, like, people need to understand, like, in songwriting,
right.
so the classic songwriting has some classical kinda elements where you have introductions, choruses, epilogue, you have, like, parts to a song structure. You
Right.
also take advantage of, like, swells and the crescendos, and space between notes, and, like shadow, notes and buildups and breakdowns. I mean, so if you're really into engineering, which it sounds like you are, you understand about, like, building all that sonic soundscape or landscape that
Mhm.
you want these songs to, like the sounds to, like, help the vocals
Right.
or, like,
For sure.
be able to focus, like, where maybe you need a silent part to stretch out, to really make the vocal stand out, or you need something to kind of, maybe overlay the vocal because 'cause you're going for something else. It
Mhm.
depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Every moment, every song has its own vibe.
For sure. And that's the part that I've really connected with at this part of my life, is that like being able to like step into this, creative space that's just like more joyful.
Production. Yeah.
Honestly, like it's more like I spent like I was talking about like all the time when I was fighting depression and things like that, and I was just like, I just want to make something because like I have to get these ideas out. Like I have like
Mhm.
all these ideas and everything, but some of them are really like just kind of like dark and broody, and just kind of melodramatic, and not necessarily a bad way depending on what your style is, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. And so I was going through this kind of transformative period of my life where I'm just like working on myself, just kind of trying to get to a point where I'm like happier in general, and get to a place where I can feel like comfortable to do just whatever I feel like creatively. I mean,
Mhm.
and
That's a
then
good place to be.
it's a great place to be. I mean, I feel like the most fulfilled that I've ever felt musically. I feel like honestly right now is like I've created this like co-created with Cat.
Yeah, you gotta buy in. It's
y-
so awesome when you find another creative, like, head
yeah,
that's where we're in your same space, like, and
right,
when you're
and
dance or whether you're duos,
yeah,
but when you can be not just you, right? And you actually even if you're like a musician, you're working with your engineer or your producer, it's
hmm
not just you, right?
yeah,
And that
yeah, for
whole
sure.
idea of, like, every song is like a novel. Every song
Hmm
is like a film. Every
Yeah,
song has its own world, and there's a foundation, there's all this stuff going on that the general public doesn't really know about the
hmm
level of work that goes in to every song.
hmm
There's a lot of work. There's a
yeah.
lot
It
of
takes
stuff
a
under the
long
cover.
time.
There's a lot of stuff under the covers.
Yeah, it takes a long time to make music, and that's one of the things that's kind of coming up in like the in the world we live in today with AI. You
Oh,
know,
yeah. I don't like the quick fix.
and I I have kind of mixed feelings about it, right? So, like, on one hand, it's like I'm not gonna ever say that like I don't use AI for part of my workflow for helping me like plan things, for doing things like that. AI is not the enemy,
Good for
right?
that.
Like,
Good for
and
that.
the thing with creating music, I mean, some of my tools, some of my plugins, they have AI components that are built into them.
Everything's got it now, so you
Yeah,
can't
and
can't be
so
so I'm sure it's not unless you're just totally analog.
yeah, I
Like,
mean, like that's cool to do that in the modular. When I live in that world, that's great. Like if I'm just doing that and I'm like not touching AI at all, I love it, right? But like, when you're doing production, things like that, some of the tools have AI in them. It's a good starting point. I don't use it as like a one button click and I'm done. And I think that the question that I have is more like what's the point of doing it? Like, and like, I don't judge people for using AI as music, but like, I think that the thing is like, why are you doing it? Are you doing
you
it
know,
to get a laugh? Are you doing it to be like silly? Because like some of the memes and stuff that come out with like AI music and stuff, peak. They're
yeah,
great,
well,
right?
I think a lot of times the people who are using them are not musicians.
Right.
So I understand people having a tool to do something they could never
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
But
I get
but the
it.
question I have is if you're a musician, right,
Hmm
just like a writer or film director, anybody, right,
Yeah.
you go through the process because that's cathartic or that's part of your life, right?
Exactly. And
You
I
create
think that
a
the
song and that's your life.
Yeah, I think that then that gets back to my point where it's like, what's the motive, right? Like, why are you doing this? Are you doing this to get clout? Are you doing this to like be like, I'm a musician? Are you trying to like pretend that you're not using AI? Because like, what's the point, man? The process is the point. Like the
Plus, yeah,
making, and I think one of the guys from Daft Punk said something about this recently. I don't want to like
yeah, it's true. I
like
read
I don't want to like shred his words, but I agree. It's like um, the whole process of making things is why we do music, right? It's why we are creatives. It's why we're doing any of this. And then if you're like going in, if you're the person who's going in and clicking a button on a computer and auto generating a song, the question I have to ask is like, does that make you feel fulfilled? And like, does that like make you feel like you've done the right thing? Or is it like the clout on the back end that is what
yeah,
is
I think the
benefiting you?
problem we have is we live in a society where I mean, I was talking to a tech bro, 'cause I'm a software guy,
Yeah.
and he told me that, he had this idea, which I think is totally off base, that he thought all creativity eventually is gonna be in the hands of the bots, and I'm like, "I don't know what kind of world you wanna live in, but that's not the kind of world I wanna live
Right.
in." And just because you can make anybody an expert
Mhm.
doesn't mean you want everybody as an expert, right? Because music isn't about expertise, right?
It's about
Because
the little errors.
yeah, but
Yeah.
look at Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's voice was not considered to be the best voice. When he got to Columbia, there were a lot of engineers that said, "Why is he here?" They didn't understand why he was even on the mic because they were used to people like Sinatra and people like that and Nat King Cole, and it's like, "Why is this guy on the mic?" But they didn't understand. Like, sometimes the imperfections, like guys like Lou Reed, like, why would you have people that don't have perfect pitch?
Right.
Why do you have that? There's some why you have like a Michael Stipe, because art can come from anywhere and doesn't have to be what you know. It actually is better when it's something that you don't know or
Right.
what we call the unfound sound or the newfound sound. That's what music really is about. If people want to have the found sound, well, AI is great for that. But what you want is the newfound sound or the
Yeah.
unfound sound, and that's AI is never going to give you that. I don't care
Yeah.
what they think; it's never going to do it.
No, they're not. And I mean, it's like, you know, I'm an explorer at heart. Like, I want to go in there and I want to find sounds. I want to go in there and I want to break shit. I want to like go and, you know, find a way to do something that it's not meant to do, but make it cool and make it fun. And it's cool for me. It's not cool for other people. Like I could nerd out about this shit all day long, but it's
Yeah,
like, I'm not doing it to like try and win clout. Cause I mean, it's like, dude, I'm talking about, you know, modules
you're
and
not trying to
stuff.
make
It's
the
like,
next like a million view cat video.
no, yeah,
We're
exactly.
not
And so
trying to
I'm
do
like,
that.
I'm talking to other creatives here, right? And then, you know, we're all on the same page. So like I just don't get the point of doing it. If you're gonna, you know, if you're going to do it for like a gag or whatever, that's fine. Like
It's
I
fine.
think, and I think that it's hilarious, man. But and again, I've used it as a tool in one of my songs before on one of my other projects. And I specifically wanted like a spoken word part that
Yeah,
just kind of sounded like a robot was reading something.
yeah.
It was like kind of
It's
like
good for
a,
pieces like that. I mean, it's like
yeah,
any tool, to
yeah,
me. Because people used to say, like I said back in the day, like the Model 55, people said, well, that's not real music. Like there were people who argued that the Moog ones, that wasn't a real instrument.
right.
And
Yeah.
but the difference with AI is that people go and prompt and then they create like they can create like an opera,
Hmm.
right? And then the point is like, well, that's all derivative,
Right.
and maybe you could have generated it, but Bach and Beethoven and Chopin, they had passion. They
Hmm.
had a reason why they did what they did. What is your reason? My problem is like artistic intention. Like, what is your intention?
Yeah.
Right? And intention usually comes from emotions, comes from heart, comes from soul, comes from something very human, and the bot ain't human.
Nope.
So if you want it to help you with your production, do you want to help it? You want to do a lyric or do a voice? I mean, I was playing with an experiment. I have a bunch of voice synthesizers like VT3s and
Mm.
VT4s, and I was running prompts through VTs that I wrote what I wanted. It's my poetry. I didn't have it
Right.
give me and then I had to go
Same.
through my
Yeah.
VTs, and then I actually every second I changed the pitch and changed the format and made some very specific stuff. That was not it was a tool. It was not unlike an oscillator or an LFO or an envelope. In the use of tools like that, there's no problem. The
Hmm.
problem is when you write the whole freaking thing. That's the problem.
And that's back to your point. It's like music takes time, right? Like if someone comes out with an album after, you know, like 3 weeks of having not been in the studio, it's like, I don't know if you came out with an album, man. Like, and also it's like, if, again, ethics, if you're going to use it, admit it. Be like, yeah, I made this using AI, but it's still my voice, right? Like, I don't I don't understand why you would do that if you are an artist, but you know, say la
My
vie.
thing is like it's like, do you not want to go through the passion or the struggle? Like
Yeah, they
I
just want
mean,
the finished project,
because
right?
I
They
mean,
want the
the fact is, you had I heard Tom Petty was talking one time is he did like 200 takes to get to something,
yeah,
and that's very and they got guys like on Johnson why did it in 4 takes. Well, it doesn't matter, the Stones are in a mansion in Paris, and Keith's just like kind of doing his little thing, and it's like yeah, it's kind of ramshackle. It's like is it ramshackle or it's somebody's actually really intentional, like Springsteen on Born to Run took like 6 months, made the band crazy because they say what the hell we're on 6 months on one song, but that's kind of like that's the passion. It's like if you want the passion to spend 6 months on one song with the whole band like all day, every day, all the time. Well, that's what you want to do. And
right.
and if somebody can do it in 15 seconds or 2 minutes, what does that mean? Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything to me.
No, they don't got the passion.
There's no passion, but
It's
like,
not their, and it's not their vision either. You know, it's like it's not their voice.
well, why
Like,
are
and
you
that's
doing it? Like you said, they're doing it for clout.
right.
musicians do what they do because they don't care. Like, but everybody wants to be famous. Everybody wants to be heard. But
Mhm.
most musicians I know will keep on writing no matter what. And if it doesn't work, they keep move to the thing until they find something that works or resonates with people,
Mhm.
like a law of attraction.
Right.
The guys I knew, I'm 58. There were guys I knew who played guitar back in 72 and then they never picked it up again. Right? Or 77, they never picked it up. They put it in the garage, they never pick it up. Well, they're not a real musician, right? Because if they were a real musician, they'd still be playing right now.
I think that in those cases is probably like other things kind of take the front burners, right? And
Yeah.
then life kind of hits you. But I mean, I've got a
And it
day
has
job.
to,
I've got my own life and everything like that. That I've got responsibilities too. And this is like a thing where you know uh, instead of watching TV, I go and I'll toy around
well,
on the modular or whatever.
it's the same effort, an athlete, a
Yeah.
dancer, a film, an actor. How many actors are struggling?
Right.
And how many painters are struggling? They do it because they love it, and they don't stop until they're not here. I mean, you look at all the blues musicians, all the people in New Orleans. There's a lot of guys who are like 70, 80. They didn't stop. They're not pop stars. They never got big, but they love what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. But I do have to jump to another show. I think it's been awesome what we were talking about. I want people to
Yeah.
check out your band. Now, when's the album come out?
So the album comes out August 28th.
Oh, that's far.
The single drops on the 21st. Mellow. It'll be on all the streaming platforms. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, everything. About
Awesome.
like 30 that I don't even know the names of. So
Yeah, yeah, it'll be
yeah.
everywhere.
Well, Phantom, thanks so much for having me on. It's been a
And
pleasure.
come back when you have another record, even if you change into a different band. I love to talk to people. So, like, today I would like to talk more, but I do have another show.
Yeah.
But yeah, please take the QR code. Please click the Spotify. Support the artist. Pre-order the album. Pre-save it. Do everything you can. If you listen to this and you like it, go on and get it on the platform, whatever platform you like, and do what I just said. Pre-save it, listen to it. If you can buy it, get into it. But I want to thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Have a good day.